come on. What the heck's wrong with it? Nothing wrong on this end. Maybe I'll check it here. Now let's see. Aha! Now I know. Just as I thought. I need new batteries. They say having batteries from another galaxy, it's gonna last forever. Fat chats, that's ever gonna happen. Looks like I have to go through another galaxy in order to find one of these. I don't believe this. And they say they last forever, but sooner or later they start changing. And I need a new batteries like these. In case you're wondering, I'm not a magician. I'm the Doctor from Doctor Who. And this is not a magic wand, it's a sonic screwdriver. It's a scientific instrument. It's not a magic wand. Can't stress that enough. And the reason why I dress like this, well, according to my Doctor Who watch, that's my Doctor Who pocket watch. I love my pocket watch. I got a new science fiction review for you. But this is not going to be a review, actually. It's going to be a theory. A crossover theory. Now, I know some of you are going to be thinking, what kind of crossover are we dealing with this time? Well, get ready to show you. This one's going to involve two sci-fi heroes who are rivals throughout the entire, been rivals since the 30s, 40s, and 50s. You know, back then, I remember the first time I did my first crossover theory, it was Star Trek meet Star Wars, not versus. People thought it was versus, but it's meet. They don't fight. They join together. Can't stress that enough. Anyway, it was a crossover theory that I first started where I talked about how I can shut up you sci-fi fans, how Star Trek and Star Wars are going to cross over, and I thought up a really good idea. But now I'm going to be talking to the old rivals. And the sci-fi franchise I'm going to be crossing over will be nothing else than Flash Gordon meet Buck Rogers in the 25th century. Now, I would tell you the history, but I bet some of you probably remember my review of Buck Rogers and my review of Flash Gordon. If those of you haven't seen it, I'm gonna share a link to those two reviews in the bottom of this screen in case those of you want to catch up and wants to find it easily. Because everybody knows it's kind of hard to find the one video after hinting another one. But for those of you who have seen my review of Flash Gordon and my review of Buck Rogers, one thing I would do a bit of a hint for you. You see, a long time ago, Buck Rogers started out Buck Rogers came first as the first sci-fi hero. His story of Buck Rogers, it's about him being a fighter pilot. Until he flew his plane out in the snowy mountains, and him and this woman who goes by the name of Wilma Darling accidentally crash in the glaciers, and all of a sudden, Buck Rogers and Wilma Darling, they both fell asleep, and now they woke up into the future in the 25th century. Now, Buck Rogers, they did a lot of radio series about him, and a lot of radio series of Flash Gordon too, but I'll get to Flash Gordon later. But there were a lot of fans who love Buck Rogers a lot. Until when TV talkies came out, they made one serial. They're like series in the movie theater. They made one Buck Rogers serial starring Buster Crabbe. Now, Buster Crabbe, he always plays the heroic type. Until around the 70s, they decided to put Buck Rogers up to date back in the 70s. And this time make Buck Rogers not a fighter pilot, but an astronaut. And as he was an astronaut, he flew up into space, and all of a sudden gets stuck into a cold, darkened space where he fell asleep, and then he woke up in the 25th century. In this series, Buck Rogers in the 25th century, made way back in, back in 1979. It made about 2 seasons, and I got the DVD. Except Wilma isn't from the past, she's from the future, and he has a robot assistant named Twiggy, voiced by the late, great Mel Blanc. I can do an impression of him. Get off my back. What a fox. But Flash Gordon became more popular than Buck Rogers. I mean, they made, heck. They made a serial starring Buster Crabbe himself in this series. In Flash Gordon. And they made a lot of series, a lot of serials, and heck, they made a lot of cartoons. But the story of Flash Gordon in this story, in the original comic, he was a polo player. Yeah, that's right. He was a polo player. And then he meets this woman her name is Dell, and she's a reporter. And all of a sudden they meet a mad scientist named Dr. Zerkoff, and he knows what's going on because the Earth had been making a lot of weather going on, like hailstorms and tornadoes all over the world. And Dr. Zerkoff knew what's going on. There was an evil, mad alien, a bad guy, who goes by the name of Ming the Merciless. And all he's trying to do is trying to destroy Earth so he can be victorious. But Flash Gordon and Dell bumped into Dr. Zerkoff, and Zerkoff knew what's going on, so he forced them to be on his rocket ship, and they went up into space and meet Ming the Merciless. So now Ming the Merciless kidnapped Dale and tried to force her to be her bride before he destroys Earth. But Flash Gordon doesn't take that line down. With the help of Zerkoff, Flash Gordon make friends with all the other aliens throughout the galaxy and decided to triumph against the evil Ming the Merciless. And that's why he was more popular. And heck, even did a crossover where he met Phantom and, the Phantom, also known as the Ghost Who Walks, and, Mandrake, the Wizard, who is also a magician, and called themselves the Fenders of the Earth. Now, when it comes to cartoons and animation, I recommend The Avengers of Flash Gordon. This one here, The Avengers of Flash Gordon. This one is more adequate to the original comics themselves. Even they made a new character, this lion. That's Zerkoff, that's Flash, that's Dale, and that's Ming. Oh yeah, and Ming has a daughter, but she rebels against her father. And of course they made TV series I haven't seen yet. But everybody remembers De Laurentiis' 1980s movie. Bum 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 Flash! Wow, wow, wow. Savior of the universe! Bow, now, 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 now. I just love that song from Queens. De Laurentiis made this movie, and they changed Flash Gordon from a polo player to a football player. Something more modern. Which I understand. Even though this movie is corny and campy, but it's still entertaining nonetheless. And they were planning on making 3 of these movies, but sadly they only made 1 and that was it. Heck, even the actor who played Flash Gordon here, his name is Sam J. Jones, and his background, he's a former Playmate. He appeared on Playgirl. So he posed nude to a certain magazine that only desperate women and gay guys like to look through, but at least his performance is a little bit better than Buster Crabbe's. And then they struck again with Flash Gordon by making another series. This was a Sci-Fi original series from the Sci-Fi channel. And a little update, I got this on DVD made in 2007. Flash Gordon here. Which I have to say this series is more dark and more serious. More reality based. The show itself is not bad. No corniness, no campiness, and they changed Flash again from a football player to a racetrack runner. And instead of going up to outer space, he finds a machine that Dr. Zerkoff invented where it can take people to different dimensions. So now Ming is a ruler from a different dimension. And it's starring the same actor who is in Smallville. And of course, now he's in this new series called The Nick. Short for Knickerbocker. But anyway, to the theory now. Oh yeah, a little known fact here. It's kind of shocking for me to have the actor Buster Crabbe. Now, he played Flash Gordon like 3 or 4 times in the serial. Well, he played Buck Rogers once. And they're both played by the same actor, Buster Crabbe. Talk about 2 rival heroes played by the same actor. I mean, it's not like Ben Affleck will be playing Superman and then play Batman. Oh, yeah, Hollywoodland. Yeah, where Ben Affleck played George Reeve. Sorry, folks. My mistake. But here's a little hint. It's kind of funny here. in one of the series, Buster Krabs makes an appearance in this series, and he calls himself Gordon. And the funny thing is, the actor who plays Buck Rogers here, he asks Gordon, "Haven't we met before, Gordon?" And Buster Krabs says, "Oh no, Buck. We're from different times, you and I." And Buck Rogers says, "You think so?" And Gordon says, "My boy, I know so." Hintity hint hint. But sadly, nobody never thought of a crossover between these two rivals. Until today, and this is where I come in. Flash Gordon meet Buck Rogers. Now, how would this crossover going to happen? I think it's going to happen, and it involves Flash Gordon's arch nemesis, Ming the Merciless. And Ming was only played by, throughout the serials and the live movie, it's played by a white guy, and they're trying to make him look Asian, even though that's kind of insulting, per se. But at least in the TV series of Flash Gordon, the one I got on disc here, this Ming the Merciless looks more American. Sorta. Anyway, this is how it's gonna happen. Ming the Merciless is getting so fed up over Buck Rogers always keep on foiling his plans. So therefore, he told one of his scientists to invent something for him to foil Flash Gordon's to foil Flash Gordon's plan. Until one of his scientists created a time machine. And as it turns out, this time machine is in the future, so it won't go into the past, it'll go into the future and the past, whenever it's made. Now, bear in mind, Flash Gordon is in the present time, while Buck Rogers is in the future. So, Ming the Merciless here, he decided to go into the future. So, Ming the Merciless got into the time machine and bam! And then all of a sudden, Flash Gordon was on Ming the Merciless's trail, and then he started to notice that he found the time machine. He asked one of his mad scientists, "What is that contraption?" He said it's the time machine. Ming the Merciless wants to travel through time in order to change the future. So now, Flash Gordon decided to run into the time machine and shoom! There he goes into the future. Now, as Ming ended up in the 25th century, the same century as Buck Rogers, he starts noticing that Earth become very powerful and very strong with their spaceships and such in the future. And then all of a sudden, he decided to find one of the planets, it's next to Earth. He decided to take over Mars, and he says, "This time, I, Ming the Merciless, is now going to conquer Earth." So he rounded up his followers and knew how powerful he was. And now his army starts trampling over Earth. So now they call for Buck Rogers to show up. Now, as Flash Gordon shows up into the future, he bumps into Buck Rogers. And this is how the conversation go. "Identify yourself, sir." "Ho, ho, 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 easy, easy, easy. My name is Flash Gordon, protector of Earth." Flash Gordon? The Flash Gordon? "Why, yes. You heard of me?" "How can you possibly be Flash Gordon? He died centuries ago." I went through a time machine. Seriously? Yeah. Come with me. So, Flash and Buck Rogers. Flash got into Buck Rogers' ship, and Flash was pretty amazed how high-tech Buck Rogers' ship is. Until all of a sudden, he finally meet Buck Rogers' friend, Wilma Darling, and also the scientists. Well, there's a lot of scientists in the show, so whichever's which. Anyway, Buck Rogers walked to the scientist who keeps historical files, and he asked him, "Have you ever got any files about Buck Rogers?" And the scientist was like this. Got any files of Flash Gordon, I mean? Flash Gordon. Ah, looky here. And then he turns on the screen, and it showed the history of Flash Gordon. And Flash Gordon was amazed to see his biography kept in the historical documents. And of course, the scientist says, "Do you mind, sir, to ask you, why is this man that we're dealing with here looks like this?" And he points to screen and showed Ming the Merciless. And Flash says, "That's Ming the Merciless, an evil dictator, an evil ruler I've been battling throughout years." And Buck Rogers like, so this Ming the Merciless decided to go into the future in order to be victorious? Well, that's his plan. And the scientist had a good idea. He thought that Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon should join together in order to stop Ming. And Buck Rogers like this, "No, I don't think so. I don't think it's a good idea have somebody from the past here get involved in this entire situation." And Flash Gordon looked at him and says, "How do you know about the past?" And of course, Buck Rogers says, "Sir, I was from the 90s, and I fell asleep until this future." Really? Yep. You know, I did heard a story about an astronaut named Buck Rogers who went missing without a trace. That's me, man. Huh. So you fell asleep and woke up into this century? Yep. What's yours? I just travel through the stars. So, all of a sudden, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon decided to be partners in this one. So Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers got on their rocket ship, got into their starcraft, and decided to go up into space, while Ming the Merciless sent his new troopers and said, "Go! Destroy these two! Who is this Buck Rogers?" And one of his minions, one of his followers says, "My lord, Buck Rogers, he's a hero from Earth who had battled many aliens and many evil mad scientists throughout centuries. Some people say he's from the past." So Ming the Merciless says, "Get your ships ready and destroy Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon once and for all." And of course, there's a lot of lasers shooting around, going on. Sorry, I get carried away. Anyway, after battling against Ming the Merciless's followers, they finally got into Ming the Merciless's fortress. And then Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon says this. I gotta say, Buck, are you good with a sword? And Buck Rogers says, Swords? Swords are for old-timers. Are you good with a laser? Well, I handled any lasers throughout centuries. I handled any lasers in my time. Of course, they were all created by aliens, but I never handled one made from Earth. So Buck Rogers handled his spare laser. Here, take mine. So now, here's a showdown between Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and Ming the Merciless.
So, you are Buck Rogers they told me about. It's a fitting for me that I have a chance to destroy you along with you, Flash Gordon.
And of course, Ming the Merciless with his hypnotizing ring. It pretty much put Buck Rogers into a trance. And he says,
Yes, Buck Rogers. Grab your laser and commit suicide. Sacrifice yourself to me.
And Buck Rogers going like, Yes, Ming the Merciless. Until Flash Gordon grabbed the sword and knocked the laser out of his hand. Flash Gordon hits his ring. Sorry, Ming. I don't think you can kill a legend in this century.
Curse you, Flash Gordon! You both will die!
And then Ming the Merciless brings out his sword, and then he jumps right in front of him, and becomes a fight.
Cha, cha, cha!
But of course, Buck Rogers, he's no good with the sword. He trying to dodge it while he was going over to find a machine. It turns out Buck Rogers discovered that Ming the Merciless was creating a death ray. It would annihilate Earth. So Buck Rogers yelled out, "Flash, you handle Ming. I'll handle the lasers." And Flash says,
Okay, but make it quick! No!
So Buck Rogers quickly went all the way to the control room, and he tinkered with the machine and causing it to self-destruct. Self-destruct in 5 minutes. And Ming the Merciless going like,
No! You destroyed my machine! I worked so hard to conquer Earth and annihilate it!
and Flash Gordon knocked the sword out of his hand and says, "Well, try to find a way to conquer it another time. Do you yield, Ming?"
For now. Only for now.
And Buck Rogers brung out a bunch of glowing cuffs to handcuff him. And Buck Rogers says, "Sorry, Ming. You don't belong in this century." So, Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and Ming the Merciless went back into the area where the time machine is at. Now, Flash Gordon was pushing Ming into the time machine, and Flash Gordon says, "Come on, Ming, time for you to go back to your century." And then Flash Gordon says to Buck, "Hey, Buck Rogers, yeah? Don't forget to destroy this machine. I don't want Ming to come back in this century." "Don't worry, Flash. I got it under control. By the way, Flash. Yeah? What's your century like? Has it changed since I put in the slumber? You know, you can come with me if you want. Nah, I like this century a lot better. I have a destiny here, and you belong to your destiny. And of course, Flash Gordon says to Buck, I guess this means we won't be seeing each other again. And Buck Rogers says, who knows? If you find a way to come back into the 25th century, I'll be waiting for you. Well, see you later, Buck. You too, Flash. So, Flash Gordon pushed Ming into the time machine, and Ming went back into his time. And when Flash Gordon waved to Buck, he went through the time machine, and Buck Rogers destroyed the machine to make sure nobody from the past will never activate it. Meanwhile, now in the present time, Ming made his escape. And Flash Gordon was like, "Dang it, Ming!" But of course he knows that Ming couldn't go back into the 25th century because, well, the machine is destroyed, so there's no going back. But Flash Gordon had to keep his word. He grabbed his sword and the machine was no more. And that is my thought, my crossover theory of Flash Gordon meet Buck Rogers. Now, I have a huge problem about it. Why haven't you make this? I mean, come on, Dynamite Entertainment. Okay, here's a little known fact. There's a comic book company called Dynamite Entertainment, and they own both Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. But sadly, they never made a crossover of it. Yeah, I forgot. In case you're wondering, Buck Rogers comics first started back in 1928, while Flash Gordon started back in 1934. And I'm not kidding. Dynamite Entertainment, they start taking all the historical heroes from Pulp Fiction and comic strips and keep on making new comic book series based on it. Heck, even Dynamite Entertainment took the Phantom and took the Shadow and put him on present time. And of course, there's a present time Zorro and a current Green Hornet. And of course, other Pulp Fiction heroes and comic strip heroes. So I'm just asking Dynamite Comics, come on, Dynamite. Make a crossover of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. It wouldn't hurt to make this crossover. Make it happen. But who knows if they're going to do it or not. Right now, I hear there's a new Flash Gordon movie coming out. As for me, there's another crossover I want to get my hands on. And this is not a theory. This is a comic book they made of a 2 crossover sci-fi franchise I love. You see, not only am I a Doctor Who fan, or Whovian, I'm also a Trekkie. I love Star Trek. And there are 2 graphic novels of Star Trek Next Generation and Doctor Who. I would love to have this in my collection of comic books. And who knows, if I get these comic books, if I get these graphic novels, I can do a review of it. But anyway, any of you who likes this crossover theory, please leave a comment down below. hit like and subscribe. And if any of you have any ideas for any other crossover theories, please leave a comment down below and tell me if you want me to do any crossover theories. If you enjoyed this one. I mean, heck, I've been doing a lot. Don't even forget my crossover of X-Files meets Men in Black. But, anyway. My next review, I'm going to be reviewing a Mexican superhero who died, but he came to life during Day of the Dead. See, mi amigo. So, add on. Seriously, I need a new battery. See ya, folks.